Good morning everybody, it's Christopher from Serene Education with the 4 Majors Notice Update for the 15th of August 2011. Hi everybody, just going to look at the 4 Majors this morning, starting with the Euro against US dollar. Okay, so Friday we had an indecision day following a slight upside move from the previous 3 days consolidation before that. We saw a lot of hesitation, consolidation, a lot of volatility in last week's trading session. You can notice a lot of down candles followed by a lot of uptrends, so a lot of contradictory selling and buying as the market was very indecisive last week. And towards the end the end of last week, we saw price action slightly stagnated compared to the previous 4 or 5 days prior to that. Friday in particular, we saw a large trading range. However, both buying and selling consolidated to form the spinning top or indecision doji pattern. However, on this morning's Asian market trading session, we've seen price trading higher than the close that we saw on Friday. However, now testing a previous resistance and support level in the past, roughly as you can see here at the 143200 mark area, which happens to be in conjunction with the 50-period moving average. CTC is still red. Notice there is no correlation with the CTC on a daily because we have a sell signal followed by a lot of indecision, and the CTC on the other side is positive. So where to for price today? Well, ideally if you can close above the previous resistance level here, you can see, which is quite significant here at 143200 at least, we should see further progression to the upside. We've seen what we want to see out of this particular pair this week is some sort of direction. This consolidation band here is quite off-putting, to be honest with you. A lot of long-term traders would be stuck, not getting very much headway out of this. So ideally we would like to see some sort of price action. So bar this very clear indecision candle here, or hesitation, you can still see that the overall trend is sideways. So we've seen a bounce. We are still trading above a very strong support here, and nonetheless you can see that most of last week we saw price action hanging around support level. So if she can still stay above that, then obviously we're going to see further upside movement. Excuse me. So ideally break and close higher than 143500 this week, or these highs here. The high of 143750 would definitely bode well, because it's trading above this consolidation range, and we can see price still trading overall. The CTC is up even though we're consolidating. So we want to see obviously the blue arrow blue candle situation here, but you're not going to see that until we see a true break above all this consolidation here. So anything above the highs here at 14, this particular candle here, because they're all roughly the same high. So above this high here at 1437, 3800 would definitely give us upside movement. Intraday, still consolidation band. We are slightly pushing. We've seen consolidation this morning. We saw the Asian market trading slightly higher as we went into last night's Asian trading range, and we have seen some consolidation to the downside. However, the European session takeover, we're still trading slightly higher, but noticeably we don't have the Italians and the we don't have the French and the Italians today, primarily because they are on holiday. They've got a bank holiday today, so the French market is closed, and so is the Italian market. We are finding support above 142800. As long as we're finding support above 142800, then obviously we're going to see further upside movement during the intraday scheme. Now break below 142800 would see further lows or prior lows being tested. So look at 142800 as a intraday support, And as long as price is trading above 14,2800 leading into the latter part of today, then we could see price continue to the upside. If not, then we're going to see price reattesting the lows that are to the downside. So look for any consolidation bands below the 14,2800 to give you an idea of where price is likely to go if and when it closes below that level. If, however, it's still trading above 14,2800 going into this evening's trading or the US session, then we should be looking for further upside movement. Sterling against US dollar, again, pretty similar to what we saw on euro. Huge consolidation not candles, but a week, 2 weeks, very you could, if you look at this, you could see that we have a clear. There's definitely a clear diamond shape. It's weird. A lot of indecision in the stage, and then we saw this massive indecision candle followed by a decision candle. However, that decision candle kind of stopped at price support and resistance at this level here. There's definitely a consolidation area along the 1300 mark thereabouts, and then we saw a bounce on Thursday leading into Friday. We saw the same momentum carrying higher, and then this morning on the Asian market we've seen no trading whatsoever. The range is quite very small. In the open and close are very, very close together. So CTC has gone red, but ideally if you want to see a continuation to downside, then it needs to be trading lower than 1300 in my eyes, or in this case to see any progression, because now we've seen a bounce. Ideally we want to see this failure at this level now, coming up to consolidation. A failure to rise any further would see further an attempt at lower, but as you can see the price action is happening at the low end of the wick, and ideally we want to see price heading higher. So it'll be interesting to see if there's anything intraday. My charts are not ready yet for further scope. You look at the 4-hour candle, you can see that there's hesitation at roughly the 16,300 mark, and ideally we want to see price breaking above that. We've got to consideration the previous 4-hour candle is looking very negative. We're seeing further trading at the underside of that. Same goes for the hourly. You can see these long wicks at the 200 period moving average. So you can see it's 16,300, a definite ceiling level there. It needs to break and trade above that. Failure to do so would see a consolidation to the downside. So ideally the CTC has gone positive on the hourly chart, and then the 30 minutes exactly the same. The same for the lower time frames, but hourly and 4-hour are still looking bullish. However, we do have, if you look at the 4-hour, we do have the 50 period moving average acting as a ceiling level at the 16,300 mark as well. So need to see price trading higher than 16,300 before we even look at further longs for this pair during the course of the day. Otherwise, we're going to see consolidation to the downside. So look for a definite confirmation break and close higher on the hourly. A nice up candle would, a bullish up candle would confirm further extensions, and then we could look at possibly the 1637 750 mark, or ideally right up here at 1640 as our next possible target intraday if we get a clear break above the 16,300 mark. Next up is US dollar Swiss franc. For the past 4 days now, we have seen the US dollar gain strength against the Swiss franc as the Swiss government has started to put out, well, to start to ease monetary things on their currencies to try and strengthen the US dollar. They cannot afford to have a strong franc surrounded by a very weak euro, and you can see that they've continued with their intervention, as such you want to call it that, or easing, and we've seen the US dollar do a significant turnaround. So what we have here is a classic morning star pattern. We have bearish followed by a point of indecision or consolidation, followed by a bullish up move of significant range engulfing the previous one as such, and then we've seen a clear trade or break higher than the consolidation range that we had here prior to the break lower at 0.76. And we've seen price trading higher going Friday as well into Monday. Asian market trading, we've seen the pair push higher as the bankers still clearly stayed with this form of intervention or this the government has actually, the Swiss government is actually starting to peg the Swiss franc against the euro. So we've seen this halt in the downside movement, a break of this very strong downtrend, and we've seen price actually trading higher than the 20-period moving average for quite some time. We are now heading towards a prior consolidation. Price has tested it, and we've seen a slight pullback at the level here at the 0.80 mark, 0.0880 mark. Ideally, we'd like to be trading above this consolidation range, in particular the 50. CTC is still negative on the daily because you can see that price action is still dictated to the downside by this very negative overall bearish trend. So until we are trading above this negative trend, only then will we start seeing the buy arrow followed by blue candles, and then obviously we need to see the CTC also matching that, but that's only going to happen well above, I think in particular above the 0.85 mark in this case. We need to get well above this major downtrend to see any significant overall attempts of highs. Otherwise we're just seeing this consolidation against the major trend, only for us to come unstuck here roughly around the 81 mark, if anything. So as you see in the moment now, intraday you can still see higher highs. However, the US dollar Swiss franc is trading close to the 80 mark, which happens to be a consolidation period or area. You can see here a noticeable one. There's a band here, consolidation band between 80 and 8100. That's where the 200 period moving average is as we speak. If you look at the extension on this particular pair, you can see that we are trading at 100% of the initial move. So we see trade higher, consolidation, and the second extension, which happens to be 100% of the initial move to the upside. We have the 200 period moving average there. So ideally, I won't touch this until we actually see price trading well above the 8100 mark before I see any further indication of upside movement. Got to see that, otherwise we're just going to be trading into a consolidation area and we could see price falling back down again. CTC on the 4-hour has turned blue, but we've got to wait for this candle to close, which has not happened yet. The same for the hourly. You can see that this move to the upside is very strong. If you look at the projection figures, you look at the consolidation here, and the upside, you can see the 100% is thereabouts. And we know that at 80, the 0.800 mark, there's a strong support and resistance level. So we've got to wait for a clear breaking trade higher than that to give us an idea that we're going to see further extensions. Otherwise, if we buy here, we're buying into a consolidation area, and we could run the risk of seeing a pullback for a number of hours before we see another attempt at those highs again. Last pair of the day is the US dollar against Japanese yen. Let's have a look. Price has been very, very indecisive leading into the latter part of last week, and we have no change today. You can see that after the monetary intervention by the Japanese government, we've seen no change. It did nothing to stem the downside movement. We saw price revert to the downside, and we're now sitting around very cautiously trading, very undecisive at the lows, which doesn't bode well. Obviously, the longer we stay at this level here, then obviously we could see further progression to the downside. We followed Friday, Thursday, and Wednesday with very indecisive moves. A lot of the wicks were quite long, so the trading range was quite significant. However, we were very indecisive. Opening closes were quite close together. We had a spinning top followed by a doji followed by another spinning top. And Asian market going into European session this morning, we've seen little or no change at all in that same market sentiment. Very indecisive, don't know where they want to be going, and we need a clear direction. Whether it's trading lower, we need a nice bearish engulfing candle on the daily to confirm that we're still seeing the US dollar falling lower against the yen pair, or we want to see a bullish engulfing where we want to see price closing at least above the 3 prior days of indecision, giving us an idea, heads up, the big money is now looking at the upside. As long as it's trading above this price support area, then there's a good likelihood we could see a bounce. If not, if we see price closing lower this evening on the US session, we could see further downside movement. That's it, guys. I'm not going to go any more into the US dollar. We have to see a decision candle, but as it stands now, closes lower, then look for bearishness, closes higher, look for potential upside movement with at least the 7900 mark being our first initial target. Hope you have a fantastic day. France and I think it's, let me see here, France and Italy are bank holidays today, so they're not trading. Other than that, we don't have a hell of a lot of news out. We have the Empire State Manufacturing Index, which seems to look for a slight positiveness from the previous figure. We saw a previous figure of a negative 3.8. They're expecting a forecast of 0.8, which is higher, a lot higher. So if it comes out that 0.8 or above, then we're going to see the US dollar rally, because it means that the manufacturing index is gaining strength, even though we are seeing a very negative US dollar. So other than that, not much else, to be honest with you. So heads up, we've got to see a lot of moves. We're on consolidation ranges. We need to see a clear indication of where the big money is. Once we get confirmation of that, then we can start looking at potential targets, whether they long or short. Take care. Make sure you follow up your trading with sound money management rules, and most importantly, trade serenely.